Hi, Peter Charles here, Hooked for Life Fly Fishing. And when we're out fishing, we come across all sorts of different lighting conditions, whether it can be heavy overcast, light overcast, bright sun, dawn, dusk, night, heavy shadows, all these different lighting conditions. And, I think the tendency sometimes is to use the same fly. Oh, I like this fly, so just go fish it. But the reality is, we should be giving a little bit more thought to our fly choices based on the lighting conditions that we're facing. So, a perfect example of an old standby that we always go by is, bright day dull fly, dull day bright fly. And it's true of wet flies, steelhead, Atlantic salmon, streamers, you name it. A lot of different branches of fly fishing go with that sort of that cross between dull and bright. Bright day, dull fly, dull day, bright fly. And that's the simplest thing. So I've got a couple here. On my left, we've got two bright flies that I would consider using on a dull day. And the other thing too is if you're looking at overcast days, fluorescent materials show up beautifully. Yellows, oranges, chartreuse. So it doesn't hurt to have some fluorescent material on the fly, especially if you're operating in green stained water, which most fresh water is to one degree or another. So a bit of fluorescent material on the fly does wonders on an overcast day because it fluoresces under all that heavy blue of the overcast light. In contrast, I might use something like these two on a bright day. Now, it does have a bit of orange in it, but generally these are relatively plain flies, and they'll show up quite well. And they're also more of an imitative pattern than an attractor pattern, where these two are obviously attractors. So, you can work with that sort of standard. Look at some subdued colors, more natural colors on bright days is usually a good rule of thumb. Now, what about dawn and dusk, heavy shade, that sort of condition, even nighttime fishing? Well, there's two approaches. We have this black bunny fly. It's unweighted, so it will be very near the surface. Now, obviously, this takes relatively clear water conditions. It doesn't work that well in dirty conditions. But if the water is reasonably clear, and it doesn't have to be gin clear, just, if you're standing in the river, you can see your boots easily. That's all you need for a guide. You could fish this fly right at the very surface. In fact, if you make a couple of false casts with a rabbit strip wing like this, it will shake out a lot of water. It absorbs some air, so when you drop it back into the water, it's going to be right in the surface film. It won't really sink that much, so you get a little bit of a wake off of it. And it could look like a small swimming mammal. And because it's black, when it's viewed from underneath, it's silhouetted against the sky quite clearly. So any fish down below can see that black thing wiggling across the surface of the water. The same thing here for my brown trout weimer, only it's the reverse. Because it's white, it shows up as a bright spot. And when a fish looks directly underneath against a bright sky, that fly shows up dark, basically. It's a shadow. But in darker conditions, you don't get that. Now the white will start to show because you don't have the contrast between the sky and the underside of the fly. There isn't any real contrast. In fact, the sky could be darker. So the fish looks up and it will see the white. So you've got the two choices in really dark conditions where dusk, dawn, heavy shadow, nighttime, is going with a fly that is either very dark or white or very bright. And either one is going to work for you because, you've got two different conditions, but they still basically do the same job. They make the fly very noticeable. And it also helps to have a fly that presents well, like has shoulders, and both these flies do. A skinnier fly like this is not going to show up nearly as well. So you want something that appears big, and in this case, it is big. It will push water. The weimer just looks big. It puffs up, but it's actually not. But it will present a big profile in the water, and that's what you want for that kind of dawn and dusk type fishing, where you're relying on and their fish, don't forget, they see quite well. And when they're looking up at a sky that could be darkening enough that, you know, it's not really lighting the water all that much. The whatever residual light there is could be coming from the horizon. So directly above it's dark. So that's where the white comes in, and that's where the black comes in, because the black will still show up. And they see very well at night. So there's no problem there. They'll be able to see that fly if there's any kind of light at all. They'll be able to see it. And if it's moving, if it's creating a wake, they'll be able to feel it too. So keep those things in mind. Bright day, dull fly, dull day, bright fly, and use either black or white if you're going into dawn and dusk type situations. Okay, both will work. So give that a try. Cheers.